What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Savage Rounds with Xavier, episode number 26. This week for you, we've got UFC 293 over in Sydney, Adesanya versus Strickland for the middleweight strap, tied to Ivasov versus Volkov as the heavyweight co-main event. It's a pretty fun card. There's some interesting matchups, some new guys debuting as well. I'm going to try a little bit of a different format this week. It's going to be a little bit shorter than usual. I just want to see how it does. The long form video will still be the usual. It'll be back next week. I just want to see if I should also be doing something shorter form. But this week, I'm going to start off with a little recap of last week. Steamrolled this card, 10-1. The Savage Rounds parlay hit 2. We're moving up to 16-10. 7.1 units made. I'm trying to think if there's anybody on this card I wanted to talk about. The Basharat performance was great. Morgan Charrier looked really good. Ozdemir beat the guy he should have. He beat the washed allegations. Manon Fiorot, I thought it was going to be an easier performance for her, but she still got the victory. A lot of people think that fight was super close. I don't think it was as close as people are making out it to be. Like, the judges could have gone either way with the decision, but I did think Fiorot was going to kind of roll Namajunas over, and Namajunas made it difficult, and then the Gane fight went like how I thought. It was just hard for Spivak to get a hold of him, and obviously Gane's been improving the takedown defense, and then when they're on the feet, it's not a contest. But I skipped over him. The show stealer, Benoit Saint Denis, put on a star-making performance, if you'll say. It was incredible. Pure pressure on the feet, was throwing bombs, was throwing heat. Nothing Moises really threw back bothered him or did anything to him, really. Saint Denis just kept coming forward, and then he started to grapple, and that's where people thought Moises could kind of start to use his skills to get into the fight, and man, Saint Denis did whatever he wanted to. It was a sick performance. I've been trying to tell you guys about this guy. He's just going to keep getting better. He might not be the most technical on the feet, but he's got power, a chin of steel, and the grappling is elite, so that's always going to be in the back pocket. There's the Savage Rounds parlay, like I told you. We went Basharat and Benoit, taking us, like I said, 16-10, 4-week win streak, looking to match the 5, which is our best streak this week. And yeah, like I said, profit. If you've put 1 unit on every parlay so far, you'd be up 7.1 units. Let's get into it. So like I said, it's going to be a little bit shorter. I'm still going to read out the stats, like their tail-of-the-tape stats, and then it'll just be a brief little explanation. Kevin Jousset, 30 years old, 8-2, 6'2", no reach stats, 4-1 in his last 5. This is his UFC debut. His last fight was a round 3 KO/TKO victory over Kit Campbell in Hex Fight Series 25, a bit earlier this year on the Kiefer Crosby side. A little bit older, 33 years old, 10-3, 5'11", 70-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5, and this is also his UFC debut. His last fight was a round 1 KO/TKO victory over Alex Oliveira in Rise FC, and that is the Alex Cowboy Oliveira, the one that used to be in the UFC. They put on a 1-round barn burner. It was a sick fight. And for this one, it's kind of an interesting fight. I could talk about each fight super long already. I'm going to try and keep it short. I think on the feet, they're both really hittable. Jousset is a little bit longer. I like the leg kicks from him. Crosby's going to come forward wild, and his chin's not quite as good as Jousset, I don't think. Jousset has decent takedown defense. He's been training over there with all the city kickboxing guys, so obviously they've got some decent takedown defense over there. They know what they're doing. I think he's going to be able to hold off on the takedowns, get back up if he does get taken down in the first round, and then put it on Kiefer Crosby and try and get him out of there. I don't know if he'll be able to get him out of there, but I just think as the fight goes on, he'll be doing more damage. Just the longer guy, I think he'll be able to get his strikes off. Bet-wise, I'm staying away from this fight. This is kind of we're going to get to know about each of these guys' fight. How they're going to fight in the UFC, how they're going to fare in the UFC. Obviously not the highest level fight for each guy, but I'm going Kevin Jousset. Like I said, I'm passing on betting action for this fight. Next up, Shane Young, Gabriel Miranda. Shane Young, 30 years old, 13-7, 5'8", 72.5-inch reach, 2-3 in his last 5. His last fight being a unanimous decision loss versus Blake Bilder in February of this year. Gabriel Miranda, 33 years old, 16-6, 5'11", 71-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5, 0-1 in the UFC, and his last fight was that single UFC fight, a round 2 KO/TKO loss versus who we just talked about, Benoit Saint Denis in Paris, but this was last year's Paris card. This was an interesting one for me to pick. I don't have too many dogs this week. Let me check. Yeah, it looks like I've got only two or three dogs this week. This is one of the ones I'm going with. I just really don't trust Shane Young anymore. He hasn't hurt anybody really with his hands since like 2015 when he first came into the UFC. The durability is looking questionable. He doesn't take shots as well as he used to. Gabriel Miranda is coming down to his normal weight class. He fought Benoit Saint Denis up at 155. This is down at 145. He's going to be the bigger guy. He doesn't have the best striking, but he was able to tag Benoit Saint Denis a few times. Not like hurt him, but snap his head back. He was getting hit. Shane Young's a hittable guy. And then on the ground, there's no questions here. If Miranda can find a way to get this fight to the ground, whether it's like he hurts him on the feet and is able to get him down, or as he works into this fight, he's able to find a takedown, or maybe in the first round, who knows. But I just think if he's able to do that, it's a wrap. I'm going with the underdog in Gabriel Miranda. I think right now it says he's plus 159. I think right now he's up around plus 190 if I'm not mistaken. I just think the bigger guy, he's going to be able to land a big shot. I don't trust the power of Shane Young. I don't know if he's going to be able to hurt Miranda. I'm going with Miranda in this one. I think if this is, I don't know what I forgot to check odds before this one, like to refresh myself. I can't remember if this is a 1.5 or 2.5 fight, but if it's over 2.5, the under should hit with ease. If it's 2.5. 1.5, it could be a little dicey, but I think it still could hit. Definitely, fight doesn't go the distance is a good play here. I think one of these guys will find a finish most likely. But Gabriel Miranda's the pick. I'm not too eager to bet anything in this fight. There's nothing that really stands out to me. And I didn't say it before, but this is definitely a light betting card for me. A lot of big favorites, so that's a bit scary. And a lot of like unproven guys like Blood Diamond and newcomers like Kevin Jusay, Kiefer Crosby, Charlie Radtke, I think that's how you say his name, Landon Quinones. There's a lot of unknowns, so I'm playing a few plays and staying away for most of it. This next fight, Mike Mathitha, or most people know him as Blood Diamond, versus Charlie Radtke. I don't know how to say his name. Blood Diamond, 35 years old. His whole record is 3-2. He came from kickboxing, if you're not familiar with him, so he doesn't have too many MMA fights. 5'11", 76-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. That's his whole record, and he's 0-2 in the UFC. His last fight was a unanimous decision. Loss versus Orion Kosei last year in 2022, so it's been a bit since he fought. On the Radtke side, 33 years old, 7-3, 5'10". I didn't see any reach stats. He's 4-1 in his last 5. This is his UFC debut, and his last fight was a round 1 submission victory over Raheem Forrest over in CFFC. I can't lie to you. I didn't tape this fight. I tape fights I'm interested in or that I feel like I need a refresher on to make my picks. And this was just one I did not care to watch regardless. Don't follow my advice on this one. I'm going with the underdog here just because it's Mike Mathitha. He's the huge underdog. He's got decent takedown defense. Once the fight gets a little bit later, once they start to, I don't know, once they've done a bit of stuff and they're both a little bit more tired, the defense starts to fade. I think Jeremiah Wells only got him down once. That was all he needed in the end, but his takedown defense withheld for a bit there. I want to say Jeremiah Wells went like 1-4 or 1-4-4 on takedowns. like I said, I can't lie and say I know too much about Charlie Radtke. This is totally one I skipped over this week. I'm not even going to waffle anymore like I know. In this one, I'm going with the underdog for my pick. Don't follow me on this one, and I'm not betting anything for this fight at all. Don't care. The pick will be, just for pick's sake, it'll be Blood Diamond. Nasrat Haqparast versus Landon Quinones. I don't know. This was a weird fight for me. It is what it is. Haqparast, 28 years old, 14-5, 5'10", 72-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight is a unanimous decision victory over John Makdessi, also in the UFC Paris card last year. And then on the Landon Quinones side, 27 years old, 7-1-1, 5'9", 72-inch reach, 5-0 in his last 5. This is his UFC debut. His last fight was a round 1 KO TKO victory over Yemi Adewole in Titan FC 80 last year, at the end of last year, but he did take part in this year's Ultimate Fighter. So technically, it's considered an exhibition fight, so it's not really on his record, but technically his most recent fight is a round 1 submission loss versus Jason Knight in March of this year on that Ultimate Fighter season. I'm going with Haqparast here. I don't know if Quinones is quite UFC level. He's a decent guy, but I just think getting Haqparast in your first UFC outing is a bit tough. Haqparast is going to walk forward or even counter-strike if Landon Quinones is the one walking forward. But I just think, Haqparast is just going to put out so much more volume than him. He's going to tag him up. He's the more experienced guy. I'm going Haqparast for this one. I think this is relatively a simple read. I think Haqparast is going to dust him with the volume on the feet. I'm going Haqparast to get the win here. Betting-wise, I think Haqparast is going to win. Like, it's a safe bet to say Haqparast is going to win. But throwing any minus 550 in a parlay is a little bit crazy. If you have any certain way about if you think Quinones can make it to the distance or if you think Haqparast is going to finish him, maybe you find a bet there. But like I said, it's just a tough card for betting. There's not too many spots to find, just with all the huge wide lines and unknowns and guys. The pick's going to be Haqparast, but this is another one I'm probably staying away betting-wise. Next up, Jamie Mullarkey, John Makdessi. Another fight that just... I said at the beginning, a good fight top to bottom, but actually, as we go through this, I'm kind of questioning that. I don't know. Another fight that didn't really get me excited, but obviously we know about these guys. They've both fought numerous times in the UFC. Jamie Mullarkey, John Makdessi. Mullarkey, 29 years old, 16-6, 6-0, 74-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight was a round 2 KO TKO loss versus the debuting Muhammad Naimov. That was in June of this year, so not too long ago. John Makdessi, 38 years old, 18-8, 5'8", 68-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5 as well, and his last fight was a unanimous decision loss to Nasrat Haqparast, who we just talked about. This was a weird one all week. My gut is telling me to pick John Makdessi. He did well against Bahamondes, a longer, rangier fighter. Definitely the better chin. He was able to get off more damage. But I don't know, the age scares me. He hasn't fought in quite some time. Literally a year. Jamie Mullarkey's got decent power. He's not really going out there and finishing people like that. I was just looking at it before I started recording. I don't think he has too many finishes as of late. Yeah, the last one was in 2021. I want to pick John Makdessi. That's what my gut's telling me to do. Normally I like to side with my gut, but the age and the length is just keeping me away. I'm gonna pick Jamie Mullarkey in this one because I like what he can do at range. I think he'll probably get the leg kicks going and try and use the jab, pump the jab to keep Makdessi at range. He's got decent boxing combinations and hand speed. He just doesn't move his head, which scares me. And Makdessi was able to pop Bahamondes, so he'll probably be able to tag up Mullarkey too. I don't know. I can't bring myself to pick 38-year-old John Makdessi, even though I want to. I'm going with Jamie Malarkey. Man, this is another one. Betting-wise, I'm staying away. I could totally see this going to decision. I could totally see the finish coming here. Yeah, the trend of weird card continues. The picks, Jamie Malarkey, betting-wise, staying away. Next up, Jack Jenkins versus Chepe Mariscal. Jack Jenkins is 29 years old, 12-2, 5'7", 68-inch reach, 5-0 in his last 5, with a win on Contender Series, and he's 2-0 in the UFC now. His last fight was a split decision win over Jamal Emmers in June of this year, which a lot of people did think he lost, me included. He did. I mean, I really didn't think he won that fight, but it was close regardless, and the judges ended up giving it to him, so that's what he's got. On the Mariscal side, he's 30 years old, 14-6, 5'7", 69.5-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5, and 1-0 in the UFC. His last fight being that UFC bout, it was a unanimous decision victory over Trevor Peek on the same card as Jack Jenkins, actually, back in June over in Jacksonville. I'm going with Jack Jenkins here. I think people are massively overrating Chepe Mariscal after the Trevor Peek performance, and I am totally open to being wrong and Mariscal coming out and having a good performance, but I just think Jack Jenkins is going to be a bit too steady and technical and good for him. Mariscal was able to thrive in the chaos of that Trevor Peek fight. He was able to show off his chin. He likes a brawl, so he bought a bit down on his mouth guard and threw some strikes back, and the wrestling prevailed in that fight. I think in this one, Jack Jenkins is going to eat up Chepe's front leg with the leg kicks. Obviously, when you're breaking down a Jack Jenkins fight, you have to see the leg kicks. He's always throwing those, and they are brutal. And then he throws quite nice boxing combinations as well. He could throw the kick to the body sometimes too. I think Chepe is going to come forward, and Jack Jenkins is just going to be a bit too defensively sound and technical for him. I think Mariscal may be able to get a takedown or two, but I think Jack Jenkins will probably be able to defend most of them and maybe get up if he does get taken down. I know he's not the best off his back, but I don't know. I'm not super high on Chepe Mariscal, but like I said, I'm willing to be proven wrong. I'm going with Jack Jenkins in this one. From my point of view, how I see this fight after watching tape, I do think Jack Jenkins at minus 200. I don't want to say it's safe because it's not. Chepe is still a solid fighter. Minus 200 isn't safe, but I think if you're on the Jack Jenkins side, it's not a bad look if you had like two fighters you wanted to throw into a parlay or something. I think, man, we could see a finish here if he's able to eat the leg up and do good work up top into the body. But I could also see Chepe being too tough to be able to get out of there. I think more than likely this fight goes the distance and we see a Jack Jenkins decision. So I don't want to go too hard on like the under, but I could see a finish. I lean decision though. I'm going Jack Jenkins as my pick. Next up, Carlos Ulberg, Woon Jung. This is one of the spots I do like on the card. Like I said, there haven't been too many, but this is definitely one of them. Ulberg, 32 years old, 9-1, 6'4", 77-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5. His last fight was a round 1 KO victory over Ihor Peteria earlier in May this year. On the Woon Jung side, 29 years old, 4-1, also 6'4", 78.5-inch reach, 2-1 in his last 5. His last fight was a unanimous decision loss over Devin Clark, also earlier this year in February. I love Carlos Ulberg in this spot. I think he's only continuing to get better in MMA. Obviously, you can see there the takedown defense is outstanding. I don't picture, like when I think about this fight, I know Woon Jung has the takedowns in his back pocket. I just don't really see him going for them here. Maybe if he gets tagged, or if he starts to get touched up, he'll start shooting takedowns. But I think for the most part, he'll try and clinch up against the cage and use his striking. and I think Olberg's going to be too technical for him, too quick. Olberg's got so much power. I really do think he finds the finish of, it says Dan. I just realized this is Dan Woon Jung. No, it's Da. There should be no N there. I really just do think Carlos Olberg's going to find the chin of Da Woon Jung at some point. We saw Dustin Jacoby put him out, and I think we could see something similar to that. Maybe not in the exact same way, but I do think we could see a first-round finish here. It really is. It's just the speed and the technical ability. I was going to say technicality, but that wouldn't work. Technical ability of Carlos Olberg here. The kickboxing ability he has. I definitely think we'll be able to handle Da Woon Jung on the feet. He's a hittable guy when you back him up against the cage. We saw that versus Kennedy. Obviously, he was a little bit tired and hurt at that point too, but I do think that's where Da Woon Jung can get off his best. That is his path to victory. He's got to push Carlos Olberg up against the cage, try and get those clinch elbows going, try and break and throw strikes while he's backed up against the cage. But I do think Olberg will be able to use his movement to stay off the cage and keep popping that I can't think of the word, the jab out, and then find the combination that puts him out, puts Da Woon Jung out. So I do like Olberg here. I think the under's probably 1.5. Like I said, I forgot to double check all these beforehand. I should have, but the under's probably 1.5. I think Olberg probably gets him out of there in 1. That's how I see this fight going personally. I will probably be throwing a little sprinkle on Olberg round 1 TKO. I definitely think Olberg TKO is the way to go. And then Olberg at minus 260. I think if you're a parlay guy, Olberg's not a bad guy to have in a parlay. But Olberg's the pick here. Definitely one of my more favored, more confident picks on this card. Next up, Tyson Pedro versus Anton Turkalj. Another spot I do like, and I feel like this was everyone's favorite dog this week, and then he turned into a favorite, and now he's back to a dog. The current odds up, I want to say Turkalj switched back to a slight dog. They're still both in the minus, but I think it's slightly moved the other way now. Tyson Pedro, 31 years old, 9-4, 6'3", 79-inch reach, 2-3 in his last 5. His last fight was a unanimous decision loss over versus Modestas Bukauskas in February of this year. Anton Turkalj, 27 years old, 8-2, 6'4", 78-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5 with a win on Contender Series, and he's 0-2 in the UFC. His last fight was a unanimous decision loss over Vitor Petrino in March of this year. This fight, I'm going with Turkalj. I like the size here. I like his durability, and I think he can tire Tyson Pedro, obviously. Tyson Pedro is ridiculously dangerous in the first round. He throws great kicks to the body. He's got really good hands, big power in the hands as well. I just worry for him. I mean, and obviously it's everybody's worry if you watched watched his last couple fights, I guess. Is he on a 2-fight losing streak? I gotta double check. Oh no, he had beat Harry Hunsucker right before. So in the Bukauskas fight, he just gassed so quick. He looked done after the first round and just wasn't really able to get anything going. And I do think that's probably what we see in this fight. Obviously, Turkalj is nowhere near as good as Tyson Pedro on the feet, so he's got to be able to withstand round 1 Tyson Pedro when he's at his most dangerous and most vicious and best form. He's obviously got to be able to withstand that and get past that, but I think he does. I think he'll be able to clinch up against the cage, wear on Tyson Pedro, and try and get him down. He's relentless. I favor the cardio out of Turkalj for sure. He'll be there in the second round at least. And then the size definitely plays a part in it for me as well. I just think he'll be able to wear on Tyson Pedro, last that first round, get him tired, and then get him down to the ground, maybe towards the end of the first, if he can't do it immediately, wear on him and get him down later in the second round, and maybe find a submission, or he's just able to control him at that point. I'm not sure. I am throwing probably a small money line bet on Turkalj. Hopefully it moves a little bit back down later today. But yeah, Turkalj is another spot I really like on this card. Obviously Tyson Pedro can hurt him and get him out of there early if Turkalj plays that game with him. But I do think he'll be durable enough and smart enough to withstand that first round from Tyson Pedro and then wear on him, tire him out, and get the victory. So I'm going Turkalj in this one. Next up, Justin Tafa versus Austen Lane. Tafa, 29 years old, 6'3", 6 feet tall, 74-inch reach, 2-2-1 in his last 5. His last fight was the draw, the no contest versus Austen Lane. They're running it back. On the Austen Lane side, 35 years old, 12'3", 6'6". He is a huge, massive human. 80-inch reach, 4-0-1 in his last 5. 1-1 on Contender Series and a draw in the UFC, obviously. His last fight was that no contest versus his current opponent, Justin Tafa. They tried to do this back in Jacksonville. There was an eye poke. Now we're here in September in Sydney, running it back. My breakdown is probably going to be relatively the same. I just don't nothing has changed. I just don't think Austen Lane is great. He hasn't been knocked out in quite some time. I want to say, let me pull it up if I'm not mistaken, since the Greg Hardy one on Contender Series. Let's see. Austen Lane. Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, no, he's been knocked out twice since then. So the last time he got knocked out was in 2020 in LFA. But he hasn't been knocked out since then. It's been some time. Regardless, I just don't think he's quite UFC level. He's a big athletic guy. Obviously, he's going to be able to hurt some people. But I think when they're on the feet, I think Justin Tafa is just going to be a little bit better. He's got big power. We've seen Austen Lane get knocked out before. I just think if Tafa touches him, it's probably over. I'm going with Justin Tafa to get this one done. The under, it probably hits. Probably. But it's just not something I'm willing to play with, to be honest. And I'm not overly confident in Tafa getting the win. That's really the way I see it going. But obviously, Lane is a big, giant, athletic guy. And those kind of dudes have big explosive power, so we could get Tafa out of there, but I just side with Tafa in this one. So Tafa's the pick. No bets here for me again. I'm going to continue to say it. It's a slow betting card for me. Next up, one of my favorite fights. I love watching Manel Kape fight. He's really talented, really fun to watch. And we've got him versus Felipe Dos Santos. It was supposed to be versus Kakar France, but he got injured, couldn't make it to the cage. So now we've got Felipe Dos Santos, who's getting his opportunity after his Contender Series fight fell apart. Good on him to stay, make weight, and take this opportunity. It's pretty cool to see. Manel Kape, 29 years old, 18-6, 5'5", 68-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight was a unanimous decision victory over David Dvorak in December of last year, so it has been quite a bit of time since he's fought. Felipe Dos Santos, 22 years old, 7-0, 5'7", 70-inch reach, 4-0-1 in his last 5. 4-0-1 in his last 5. He's not 4-0-1. He's undefeated. 5-0 in his last 5. I don't know why. I must have forgot to change that. I gotta check now. Do I have that right? Yeah, 7-0. Okay, 7-0. 5-0 in his last 5. This is his UFC debut. His last fight was a unanimous decision victory over Hugo Paiva in LFA. And he fought even less recently than Manel Kape. He fought in November of last year, so neither guys fought super, super recently. And like I said, Felipe Dos Santos was supposed to fight this past week on Contender, maybe 2 weeks ago. He was supposed to fight recently on Contender Series. His opponent wasn't able to make it to the fight. He stayed, made weight. Dana White gave him this opportunity. Just goes to show what, staying professional can get you these big opportunities, but it is a really tough opportunity in Manel Kape. If you've seen Manel Kape fight before, you know how good he is. He's ridiculously technical, explosive. He's got big power. He was the champion over at Ryzen. And I love watching him fight. I think if you don't know about Felipe Dos Santos, he's one of the shoot to box guys, and you know how they fight. They dye their hair blonde. They come forward with reckless abandonment, swing. Obviously, the Muay Thai is nice. They've got big power. I mean, obviously they don't all, but it just seems the typical shoot the box fighter comes out like that, and then elite jiu-jitsu. I do think this is too big of a task for the 22-year-old, though, and part of it has to do with him being 22. He's obviously got the skills to be in the UFC. He's talented enough, and I hope, obviously, if they're giving him this opportunity, he'll get another UFC opportunity. But I just think he's going to come forward and try and be that shoot the box style fighter where it's the Muay Thai. They're coming forward, putting the crazy pressure on, being aggressive. And I think that's going to play right into Manel Kape's style. He wants to counter strike. He wants to wait for you to make a mistake and capitalize on it. And I think that's what's going to happen. He'll probably, I won't say probably, but I see him catching Felipe with a big counter and probably hurting him. I keep saying probably, I don't know why. And hurting him, that's how I see it. And then getting him out of there with ground and pound TKO, or whether he hurts him on the feet and is able to finish it like that, I'm not sure. There's a chance this goes to decision. With the way Felipe fights, I think it kind of steers me towards the finish. But regardless, I do think Kape gets this one done. This is another spot, I think, if you're a parlay guy, maybe not at this point, which I guess doesn't help you at this point, but earlier in the week when he was like minus 320, you probably could have thrown him in a parlay. I want to say now he's sitting at like minus 420, so it's a bit steep. I do think he's going to win, but yeah, this is another one of those spots I definitely like on the card, or at least in the winner. Like, I feel confident picking Manel Kape here. I'll try to find a way to bet him, as I really do think he's going to win, but I'm not 100% sure what I'll do. I may end up throwing him in a chalk parlay with like Adesanya, Kape, and Olberg. See what that odd. It probably comes out like minus 150, so you'd have to be willing to throw a bit on it. But I do feel pretty confident in those three guys, which I guess I talked about that Adesanya one too early, but whatever. Next up, co-main event, Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov. Tuivasa, 30 years old, 15-5, 6'2", 75-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight was that round 1 KO TKO loss versus Sergey Pavlovich back in December. On the Volkov side, 34 years old, 36-10, 6'7", massive guy, 80-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight was a round 1 KO TKO victory over Alexander Romanov in March of this year. And I do think this is a tough matchup for Tai Tuivasa. Obviously, he's got the huge, big one-punch knockout power, so he could go out there and put Volkov out, but more times than not, I think this fight goes with Tai Tuivasa coming forward, trying to land that big shot, maybe kicking at the legs a bit, and Volkov throwing that teep kick, trying to hurt Tai Tuivasa to the body, and then just using that length when Tai comes in to snap his head back with the jab and find the big shots. I think both guys are going to try and put the other one out. I do think the under 1.5 is probably a good shout here, whether Tai catches Volkov or Volkov's able to continue to pop that front kick out and then find the big shot at some point. I do think with how Tai fights, it just kind of lends to an early stoppage either way. So Volkov's the pick. Obviously, this fight isn't going the distance, but I do think the under 1.5 hits. Whichever side you're on, that guy by KO is a fine bet. Man, I haven't bet Volkov yet, and the only reason I haven't, because the heavyweights just scare me to bet. I want to bet Volkov. All the skills and the way they fight and the size points to Volkov, but just with the heavyweights, and I mean especially Tai Tuivasa, it's that one punch power. Anything can happen. So betting wise, I might throw a little bit on. Man, I don't have to check. The only thing I'll really probably end up playing. The only thing that stands out to me is the under 1.5 here. I do think it hits whoever wins, so I'll probably be playing that. But other than that, betting-wise, I'm not 100% sure yet, but the pick is Volkov. Main event, we've got the middleweight strap on the line, Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland. I personally, I mean, I'd say most people feel, but I think this is a really, really tough matchup for Sean Strickland. I'll talk about it a little bit in a second, but Adesanya, 34 years old, 24-2, 6'4", 80-inch reach, 4-1 in his last 5. That only loss coming to Alex Pereira, and his last fight was a round 2 KO TKO victory over Alex Pereira back in April of this year. Sean Strickland, 32 years old, 27-5, 6'1", 76-inch reach, 3-2 in his last 5. His last fight being a round 2 KO TKO victory over Abus Magomedov in July of this year. It was a decent performance, but Abus Magomedov was thrown way too far up into the rankings. The main event spot was much too early, and they kind of rushed him in. Sean Strickland was able to do what he needed to and was supposed to do. I feel like this is, like I said, I feel like this is a really, really rough matchup for Strickland. The way he baints at fights, the way he feints, the way he bites at feints, I don't know why that was so hard for me to say, is ridiculous. The reactions are just so, it feels exaggerated, but they're not. It's just such big reactions to every feint. Alex Pereira was able to expose that big time. Israel is one of the masters of feints in this game, and I think Sean Strickland's going to come forward, the leg's going to be there to kick, and I mean, you know what kind of counter-striker Israel Adesanya is, probably the best in the game. It all adds up to a tough night for Sean Strickland. I think Israel gets him out of there inside 3. I'm feeling round 2 again. We called the round 2 Sean O'Malley knockout. I even played that bet to back it up. Called the round 2 Gane knockout. Even played that bet to back it up. I'm almost feeling like we might run it back and try and go 3 for 3 on the round 2 knockout bets. I think Adesanya gets him out of here relatively early. If he doesn't in 2, I see it in 3, but I think I might play that round 2 knockout bet again. Try and keep the train rolling, but the pick is Israel Adesanya. Betting wise, Israel inside the distance. I think he finds the finish. He's been talking about submissions a lot. I don't know if he deviates from his favorite game plan in kickboxing. I think the under 4.5 hits. I don't think Sean Strickland can last that long with Israel Adesanya. And I just don't think Strickland's. I mean, even if Strickland somehow does magically finish him, you're under 4.5 finishes, but I just don't see it. I think it's a masterclass from Israel. He gets him out of there. And then the money line is absolutely ridiculous at this point. I think it's up over 700. So at this point, there's no real incentive to throw it into a parlay because it'll barely affect the line. Even if you are 100% certain he's going to win, it really doesn't do anything. So it kind of doesn't make sense to throw it in at that price, but whatever. I don't know. I think Israel Adesanya makes this quite easy work. But yeah, that's my pick. The under 4.5 hits. Maybe throw that round 2 knockout. Throw a little sprinkle on that. I don't know. We've got another Savage Rounds parlay here. I'm doing it a little bit different this time. I haven't had any over-unders in it, I don't think, since like early we started doing the Savage Rounds parlay. But this week we're going Carlos Ulberg. By the way, I talked about it. You could probably tell this is my favorite play of the night just because the odds aren't overly shot yet, and I feel pretty good about Carlos Ulberg. I think he knocks out Woon Jung. And then the other play we're going with, Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov, under 1.5 at -110. I do think if Tai Tuivasa catches him, it'll be early, and I definitely think Volkov can knock Tai Tuivasa out in the first round, early in the second, especially with the way Tai fights. I think this is quite a solid bet. Oh, I don't have the right graphic up. There's Gon versus Spivak again. But yeah, there we go. Those are the picks and predictions for this week. Like I said, light betting card. Not too much I'm confident in. Go play the Savage Rounds parlay. We try and make it 5 weeks in a row we hit. Come back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. I'm going to try and get the face cam back in. I've got a new background for the videos coming, so try and make them a little bit better. Drop a like and subscribe. See you guys next week. Peace out.